So, welcome everybody to our Southern California first time buyer market update. My name is Stephen Mead. I'm here at Domicile Real Estate, where we are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. And I think it's a really important mission. And I'm going to start off with something and talk a little bit. And that is a question that we've been getting a lot from our clients, which is, am I running out of time? I'm also putting in a little bit of a link. We did a video last week about whether or not we are in a bubble, kind of a part one. We're doing part two this weekend. We're going to put a link also in here so that you can access that as well, especially if you're on YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. So around this question of are you running out of time? And I think you have to think what most buyers want. Like I would say an ideal market, if you are a first time buyer, an entry level home buyer, an ideal market is low interest rates and a market that is relatively slow, right? Like that's kind of the best of all worlds, right? Because you are going to get cheaper payments and you're going to have your pick of the litter. Now, right now, we're not in a market like that, right? Like we're in a market where the interest rates are low, but absolutely, this is not a slow market. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a very fast moving market. And I think kind of there's this sentiment among clients that are very frustrated out there. And they're saying, well, if I wait, am I going to get to keep the low interest rates and wait for a market that isn't quite as competitive? So maybe something a little bit closer to a slow market. Here's the way I think things are going to go through the rest of the year. And I want to say this is just purely my conjecture. I have a degree in economics. I've studied, I look at a lot of like the factors, but frankly, I'm just guessing with education, which is really what everybody else is doing too. But this is kind of the way I think things are going to play out. I think we will have a small period of time, a little bit of a window where the market is a little bit easier. I don't think it is going to get slow or easy before rates begin to go up. I do think that rates will be moving in an upward direction. I just don't know exactly the timetable. I've thought that for a while, but frankly, we are at a point where I think given at least the short-term inflation, I think there's going to have to be some kind of a response on interest rates, and it's going to be in the upward direction. The CPI for the month of April, so just the month over month increase was 0.9% higher. That means we are running on a pace of inflation in April for a 10% year. That's huge. Like that's not a small amount of inflation, and I just don't think that the bond market is going to be able to ignore that for long, or that the government is going to be able to keep buying loans. So my point is, my fear is that I think if you wait too long on this, you're going to end up in a situation that's actually the worst of both worlds. You will still be in a fairly busy, competitive market, and you will have to deal with higher interest rates, which is really kind of the two things that you didn't want. So, without further ado, we're going to jump into the stats this week. Things are a little bit better, but they're still not as much better as I would like them to be, and I think as much better as you would like them to be. So, starting off here, one of the things that we talk about first is our, let's see, not sure why it went to that end there, but okay, is we're looking at sort of our pricing of homes and affordability. And here we have a little bit of good news. Remember, this data is based on deals that were negotiated 4 to 6 weeks ago. But I think what you're noticing is that, when you look at these charts, the one thing, if I can impart one thing to you, that's to understand that we are not in some sort of a market that is on some relentless 13% a month rise that will never abate. That really isn't the market. We've had months with some kind of extraordinary gains in them, with like very high pitching weeks where we have seen prices go up quite a bit. If you look back here towards the end of, even if you look between these two data points, middle of February to roughly the middle of March. I mean, we went from a 620 to a 700, right? I mean, that is over a 10% gain in a very short period of time. So I don't want to discount that the market has moved, but I also want people to understand this isn't some beginning of the roller coaster ride where it just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. That's not really the kind of market we're in. And if you look in this past week, we actually saw a little bit of easing show up in both of our categories, both our entry-level single-family home and our entry-level condo. Both of those had quartile price easings that dropped back to about a week prior, meaning that over 2 weeks there wasn't any net change. I think it's really important to look at these graphs and kind of understand that, especially when you read these things. Like, I think Case Shiller came out and said that nationally home prices moved 13% in the month of April. I'm not sure I quite believe that in our local market here, but they definitely moved a lot, right? But understand, I don't think we're going to have a rest of the year that moves like that. I think, our growth for the rest of the year will be a little bit more tempered. So if we combine that with interest rate movements, we come up with a payment. The great news is payments have also eased, right? We're just over that $4,000 mark. When we're talking about our payment on our entry-level single-family home. Just as a reminder, this is 5% down. It includes mortgage insurance, taxes, etc. For a condo, we have some other good news. We actually moved down from our peak, and we are now back under $3,000 a month. I think this is really great news. You should be happy about this, especially if you are an entry-level condo buyer. I think this is great news because if you look back where we were in 2018, the reality is we're not that much higher than we were back then. Now, finally, just for fun, I like to throw this out there to give a little bit of a reference. Assuming you have no other debts, how much household income do you need to qualify? And in this case, for our entry-level single-family home, we are just under $100,000 at around $99,259, and we are just over $70,000 here at $72,785. The reality is these numbers really aren't too bad, and this is the reason why I feel pretty good about where we are in an affordability standpoint. I don't think we are out in some unreasonable location. And hopefully, with a little luck, the inflation will also be bringing wage increases, which is something that I know we all love. So, oops, wrong way on our chart here. So, as most of you know, if you've been watching these for a while, we divide this into two parts. The first part is affordability, and then the second part is availability. I think both are really, really important, though I'd imagine right now in the marketplace, if you're like most buyers, or if you are thinking of buying, what's really dominating those headlines is not the affordability of housing, but the lack of availability. So let's jump in there and spend a little bit of time on that this Friday. So if you look at our absorption rate here, this is kind of our quick and dirty immediate way that we sort of measure how are supply and demand interacting. How fast are those new listings getting sucked up and taken off the market, right? So what we do is we look at over the last 2 weeks, how many listings came on the market and how many went off the market under contract. And if we look at that, you see that we're running in the mid to high 80s. This is a very, very strong seller's market, but the great news is, look what it's not. It's not in the 90s, right? The 90s is not fun if you are a buyer. The 90s is circus crazy town, 25 offers on every house, right? This is a number that is a very brisk market, but more reasonable. Do note that these numbers have gone up since last week. So it wasn't quite as easy of a week to buy a home as it was a week ago, but still we're not in a horrible spot with these numbers, relatively speaking, at least. So our total inventory, we have a little bit of growth here on our entry-level single-family homes. And I think, the real story here is versus the beginning of the year, we are really in a much, much better spot than we were. If it feels like there are more homes out there, it's because there are. I think we're finally starting to see sellers put their homes on the market. One of the things I want to talk about for a second, because I think this is really important, is if we're trying to predict, right? If we are trying to predict whether we think the market's going to get easier in the future, a big component of that is homes going on the market. And it's kind of a weird symbiotic relationship. A lot of economists have really used COVID as the scapegoat for not a lot of listings on the market. I disagree with that. I think that might have been true in the beginning of COVID. I don't think that's true now. I don't think that was true 6 months ago. What I think is going on is that the issue we're having with inventory is sellers love the prices they see in the market, or rather, I should say, would-be sellers, right? They love the prices they see in the marketplace, but there is this huge concern that they're not going to be able to find another home. And that's really what's keeping them from putting their home on the market is they don't want to put their home on the market and not be able to find another home and be left with nothing. The great news is that we have a market that is still strong, but eases even a little bit, right? Is less competitive. That will produce more inventory, right? Because you have more sellers who suddenly feel confident about finding their next home if they're staying in the area, which actually is most of the sellers in our market. So I actually have some good feelings that I think we're going to see a little bit more inventory. It might not be a huge change, but I think it'll be enough to make a difference, and you'll see more houses coming online and in the marketplace. Okay, we're going to jump back in here to our slides. So, our entry level single family home inventory went up again a little bit. Our condo inventory, really, this inventory has still been beaten down. It's better than it was a month or so ago, but really it's trending around the same level as we've been since the beginning of March for our condo inventory. This is a stat that we started running to try to get an idea of immediate market conditions. This is our 14-day still active percent. We look at all the homes that were put on the market in the last 14 days, and we say how many of these homes are still on the market. Pretty decent number here for our condos, but look, we're getting back kind of towards this 60% number with our entry-level single-family homes, indicating that these homes really do get snapped up very, very quickly. Finally, I want to talk about our week supply of homes. If our total inventory went up, but our week supply of homes went down, what does that tell us? It tells us that our rate of buyers in the marketplace is accelerating. These numbers are, I'm not really sure how I feel about it, to be honest. They're not these aren't the number of weeks that we wanted. If you look back towards the fall of last year, we were almost 4 weeks of inventory on our single family homes, and we were a little under 8 weeks of inventory on our entry level condos. Look where we are today, almost a full week down. Still better numbers than we had for much of the spring, right? But not really great numbers. And then if you look here for entry level condos, I mean, we're really trending towards kind of some low points here. I think there's only a couple places we were actually under where we are. So, this is a bit of a mixed bag. I think people are waiting sort of for that, that other shoe to drop, right? Like they're waiting for some moment when inventory is going to go up and everybody's going to say, we've been in a bubble where it's going to stop buying. And I just don't see that happening from where we are standing today, right? That doesn't mean if we have a few months of 20% price gains, that might be a different conversation. But I think where we are today is we're going to be in kind of a persistent low inventory category. I think it might get a little bit better, but don't expect, if you're the kind of person who hears stories of what a normal market looks like, I don't think we're going to be heading back to a quote unquote normal market anytime soon. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for watching. We love your questions, comments. As always, do not forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And as a reminder, if you would like to see all of our videos, that is both our first time buyer market update and our weekly whole market update. Those occur every week. You will need to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will only be doing Facebook Lives alternating. So 1 week we will do a whole market update. Then we will do our first time buyer market update going forward. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for watching. We'd love to hear from you. And if you are looking to purchase a home in Southern California, you should definitely give us a call and reach out. Anyhow, we'll see you soon.